Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe and turn on notifications. Leo opened his eyes. And the first thing he registered was not the gray morning light filtering through the blinds, but the emptiness beside him. The space where Chloe should have been was a cool depression in the mattress. The sheets, already settled. He glanced at the digital clock on his nightstand. 7:30. On a Saturday. A dull ache, familiar as his own reflection, settled in his chest. He remembered Saturdays from another era. A time measured not in years, but in a feeling that now seemed impossibly distant. They used to lie in bed until 10. Sometimes later. The weekend stretching before them like a promise. They'd talk. About everything. And nothing. Her laughter, a low, genuine sound, used to be the official start to his weekend. That was a long time ago. Now, she rose with the discipline of a soldier. Even on days of rest. He'd hear the faint clicks of her phone screen from the living room. A world he wasn't invited into. Chloe, his wife of 7 years, 34 years old just last spring, had become a stranger who shared his address. He pushed himself out of bed and walked to the bathroom. The face that stared back from the mirror seemed older than his 40 years. He saw the fine lines around his eyes, the slight downward turn of his mouth. While brushing his teeth, his mind began its compulsive cataloging of the decay. When had the rot set in? It hadn't been a single event, a dramatic explosion. It had been a quiet erosion. A harsh comment from her, disguised as a joke. An icy silence from her side of the car, during a long drive. A door, she slammed, just a little harder than necessary. Small, almost invisible cracks that kept multiplying, until he realized the entire foundation was about to give way. He went downstairs. He had the idea of making a proper breakfast. Cooking was his refuge, a skill passed down from his grandmother. She used to tell him, "A man who knows how to cook never truly goes hungry." Before starting, he walked into the living room and put on a record. The National. He adjusted the volume to that precise point where the melancholic baritone filled every corner of the house. A soundtrack for his own quiet gloom. Music was his oldest friend. The smell of bacon soon curled through the air. A scent of domesticity that felt like a lie. For a few minutes, immersed in the simple task, a fragile sense of peace settled over him. It was just him. The food. The music. It was almost enough. Then, Chloe appeared in the kitchen doorway. She was dressed in sleek, dark gray workout clothes. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe ponytail. She looked at him, and her expression was one he had come to know intimately. A careful blend of irritation and contempt. "Do you really need to play that so loud, Leo?" Her voice wasn't shouting. It was worse. It was flat. Dismissive. She didn't wait for an answer. A moment later, the volume of the music dropped sharply. The familiar tightness seized his chest again. It was as if every small joy he carved out for himself was an annoyance to her. She returned to the kitchen and sat at the table, her attention immediately captured by the glow of her phone. Leo said nothing. He placed a plate in front of her and sat down with his own. "Morning," he offered. She mumbled something, her thumb swiping across the screen. He tried to remember the last real conversation they'd had. Weeks? Months? The silence between them wasn't empty. It was heavy. "Sleep okay?" he tried again. She glanced up. "Fine." A few seconds later, a small smile touched her lips as she typed. A laugh. Soft, but audible. Leo felt a sharp, unfamiliar pang in his gut. Jealousy. And despair. Who was on the other end of that screen? Who could make his wife smile? When he no longer remembered how, he felt like an intruder in his own home. The bacon on his tongue tasted like ash. When she finished, Chloe took her plate to the sink, rinsed it, and went upstairs without another word. He needed to do something. Anything. He decided to wash the car. He gathered the bucket, the sponge, the soap. The repetitive motion of scrubbing was almost meditative. The cold water on his hands, the scrape of the sponge, the gentle warmth of the sun on his back. A simple order he craved. That's when he saw him. Marcus, his next-door neighbor. Marcus was at his mailbox. He looked up, saw Leo, and his face broke into a wide, friendly smile as he waved. But Leo saw something else in it. Something behind the eyes. A glint of, what? Amusement? Knowledge? He told himself he was being paranoid. But the smile lingered. It was the smile of someone who held a winning hand. In a game you didn't even know you were playing. The smile of someone who knew a secret. Leo forced a polite wave in return. Marcus. A divorced sales executive. They'd exchanged pleasantries over the fence. Trivial conversations. Leo had never given him much thought before. But now, that smile felt like a silent message. A taunt he couldn't decipher, but felt in his bones. Later that afternoon, he heard Chloe on the phone upstairs. Her voice was low, punctuated by soft laughter. The same laugh from that morning. He stood at the bottom of the stairs, listening. When he began to climb, her tone changed instantly. He reached the landing just as she was coming out of their bedroom. She saw him. Her expression flickered. She said a quick, "I have to go," and hung up. The speed of it was unnatural. "Who was that?" Leo asked. His voice carefully neutral. "Just my sister," she said, breezing past him. "We were just planning her visit." He knew she was lying. He knew it, with a certainty that chilled him. It was in the way she avoided his gaze. The way her hand tightened on her phone. The hurried way she'd ended the call. The pieces were starting to form a picture. A picture he didn't want to see. An hour later, Chloe came downstairs, dressed to go out. "I'm meeting a friend for a bit," she announced. Vaguely. It was always vague. "Okay," he said, watching her. "Have fun." He watched from the living room window as she drove away. As her car disappeared, his eyes, as if pulled by an invisible string, drifted to the house next door. To Marcus's house. The black BMW was still parked in the driveway. The observation meant nothing. And everything. All at once. He spent the rest of the afternoon in a state of agitated stillness. A prisoner in his quiet home. Waiting. Monday morning offered no escape. Leo sat at his desk in the university library's special collections archive. He was supposed to be cataloging 19th-century letters, but the words blurred before his eyes. His mind was a relentless loop. Chloe's smile. Marcus's glance. The lie. Around 10:15, his phone vibrated. A text. From an unknown number. He frowned. He almost deleted it. But some instinct made him open it. There was no text. Just a media file. A video. He hesitated for only a second. Before pressing play. The world didn't stop. It shattered. The video was shaky, filmed from a distance. The quality was poor. But the subjects were unmistakable. It was Chloe. In a living room he recognized instantly Marcus's living room. And she was with Marcus. Kissing. A deep, desperate kiss. His hands were tangled in her hair. Her hands were under his shirt. Leo scrambled from his chair, and fumbled with the lock on his office door until it clicked shut. He stumbled back to his desk. And played the video again. And again. As if repeated viewings might change the content. But it was real. It was Chloe, his wife. And it was Marcus. The neighbor. A wave of nausea churned in his stomach. He bolted for the bathroom, and retched violently. Kneeling on the cold tile floor, sweat beading on his forehead, his body trembling. When he finally returned to his desk, his phone buzzed again. More messages. This time, photos. A photo of Chloe's car. In front of Marcus's house. On a Tuesday afternoon. Another of her leaving his front door. On a Thursday morning. More photos. Different days. Different outfits. Each one, a perfectly framed piece of his personal hell. He swiped through them. Each image. A fresh stab wound. How long? How many times? Then the messages kept coming. Another video. His hands shook as he pressed play. This time, a different house. And a different man. Robert. Who lived a few doors down. And there was Chloe, laughing as Robert pulled her toward a bedroom, her blouse already unbuttoned. Leo threw the phone onto his desk. He stared at the wall. His mind refused to process the sheer scale of it. The betrayal was an annihilation. More fotos arribed. Chloe. With a man from the gym. Then another. A complete stranger. Who was sending this? Why now? The questions flickered, but they were immediately extinguished by the overwhelming tidal wave of pain. The identity of the sender didn't matter. All that mattered was the evidence. With a strange, detached calm, he picked up his phone. He created a new, hidden folder. Methodically, he saved every photo, every video. He needed this proof. He was a historian. And this was his archive. The archive of the end of his world. He drove home on autopilot. He walked into the house and found her in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. The scene was so absurdly ordinary, it felt obscene. A cruel, theatrical performance. "Hey," she said, not looking up. Leo set his briefcase on the floor. His heart was hammering against his ribs. But when he spoke, his voice came out unnervingly calm. "We need to talk." The chopping stopped. She put the knife down, and turned to face him. "About what?" she asked. He didn't answer with words. He pulled his phone from his pocket, unlocked the screen, and opened the first photo. He turned the phone so she could see it. The color drained from her face. "Leo, I can explain," she stammered. He ignored her, swiping to the next photo, and the next. The video of her and Marcus. Her and Robert. Each new image. A silent, irrefutable accusation. When he reached the first video, he pressed play. The sounds were audible in the quiet kitchen. Chloe flinched. She stepped back, covering her face with her hands. "Turn it off," she pleaded. "Please, turn it off." He stopped the video. "How long?" he asked. His voice remained steady. She was shaking. "Leo, please. Just let me explain." "How long, Chloe?" he repeated. Colder this time. She finally sank into a chair. "It started about 6 months ago," she whispered. "With Marcus." 6 months. 180 days of lies. Half a year. While he was wondering what he was doing wrong. And the others? He pressed. Mercilessly. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. He felt nothing. "How many others, Chloe?" "Just a few people," she admitted. It wasn't serious. "A few people." He pulled out a chair and sat opposite her. "Why?" The sobs came then. Harsh. Ragged. "Because I was so lonely, Leo." She cried. "You're never here. Even when you are here, you're a million miles away. I needed someone to make me feel like I existed." He heard the words, and a pure, white-hot anger rose in his chest. She was blaming him. "I worked to pay for this house," he said, each word precise, sharp. "I worked to give you the life you said you wanted. And you used that as an excuse to sleep with half the neighborhood?" "It's not an excuse," she shot back. "It's the truth. Our marriage has been broken for years, Leo. I was invisible." "So the solution was betrayal?" he asked. "I was lost," she yelled. Confused. "Do you think I wanted any of this?" He looked at her then. At the woman he had once loved. And felt only a profound, bottomless pity. "What did you want, Chloe?" he asked quietly. When she finally spoke, her voice was a broken whisper. "I wanted to feel alive again." Leo laughed. A bitter, ugly sound. "And how many men did it take?" She didn't answer. He remembered the question from earlier. "Who sent the photos?" he asked. She looked up, her expression genuinely bewildered. "What? Who sent me the videos and the pictures, Chloe?" "I don't know," she said. "I swear, Leo, I have no idea." And in that moment, he believed her. It didn't matter. "We can fix this," she said suddenly. Desperate. "We can go to therapy. I still love you, Leo. I do." He looked at her, searching for the woman he had married. He saw only a stranger. "Do you think love is enough?" he asked. "Do you think you can just say that, and all of this vanishes?" 6 months, Chloe. Every single day. You lied to my face. She stood and moved toward him. "I made a terrible mistake." He stepped back. "Mistakes," he corrected her. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a series of choices. Over and over again." Her desperation shifted. Became manipulative. "What if," she began. "What if we tried an open relationship? We could set rules. You could see other people too. At least then we'd be honest." He stared at her. dumbfounded. You want to turn your 6 months of lies into an acceptable lifestyle, now that you've been caught, he said. His voice weary beyond measure. You want to give it a nice, progressive name to make yourself feel better. But it's still just betrayal, Chloe. He walked out of the kitchen. I want a divorce, he said from the doorway. And then, he left. The days that followed were a gray blur. Leo stayed at a sterile hotel downtown. He returned to the house on Sycamore Lane only once. To pack. Chloe was there. Swinging between tearful pleas and angry accusations. He moved through the house like a ghost, collecting the pieces of his former life. His clothes, his books, his records. He packed them into cardboard boxes, sealing them with tape, as if to contain the past. He rented a small, one-bedroom apartment across town. It was simple, unremarkable, but it was his. A sanctuary. Every box he unpacked was a deliberate step away from the ruins. A life without lies. A life without suspicion. A week after he moved in, a photograph fell from an old novel. It was from their wedding day. Chloe, radiant in a simple white dress. He stood beside her, his own face split by a grin of pure, unadulterated joy. They looked so happy, so certain. He stared at the photograph for a long time. At the two strangers, frozen in a moment of impossible hope. He felt a profound ache for the man in that picture. For his naivety. But as he continued to look, another feeling surfaced. Something unexpected. Powerful. Relief. Because now, at least, he knew the truth. For months, he had been blaming himself. Wondering what he had done wrong. And now that weight was gone, the answer was brutally simple. She had made a choice. And that choice had nothing to do with him. He placed the photograph face down in a drawer. And closed it. He began to settle into a new routine. One dictated solely by his own needs. He played his records as loud as he wanted. He read for hours without interruption. He did everything his way. No apologies. No justifications. No walking on eggshells. He was rediscovering who Leo was. When he was just Leo. Not a husband. Not one half of a broken whole. Months passed. The sharp edges of his pain began to dull. One Saturday morning, he woke up, and the first thing he felt was not emptiness, but a sense of peace. The sun was streaming through the window of his small bedroom. He got up and went to the kitchen. He decided to make a full breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast. He sat at his small table for one. And ate slowly, savoring every bite. Music played softly in the living room. The silence in his apartment was not the heavy, suffocating silence of his old life. It was a clean, peaceful silence. The sound of solitude. Not loneliness. A small, genuine smile touched his lips. He had lost a lot. His wife. His house. The illusion of a future he had planned. The loss was real. But he had gained something, too. He had regained the truth. He had gotten his dignity back. He had found the freedom to start over. He thought about the unanswered question. The identity of the person who had sent him the files. He realized, with a sense of clarity, that it didn't matter anymore. The messenger was irrelevant. The message had simply been the catalyst for an ending that was already inevitable. He looked around his small apartment. At his books. At his record player. This was his life now. It was smaller. Quieter, but it was honest. Some things, he concluded, when they are broken, stay broken forever. You can try to glue the pieces back together. Pretend the cracks aren't there. But the weakness will always remain. And eventually, it will break again. Leo had chosen to let it go. To release what was already dead. And here, in this small apartment, with his breakfast and his music, bathed in the morning sun, he was finding something he had lost a long, long time ago on Sycamore Lane. He was finding peace. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.